Hi everyone, welcome to the Learning Annex. My name is Anjhula Singh Bais and I'm here to speak a little bit about Nichiren Buddhism. It's interesting. Buddhism is such a profound topic, very vast, I suppose, in its nature, and I love taking on a good challenge. So I've been asked to speak a little bit about it, so I'm going to try speaking from copious notes, facts from the heart, and also my experience. So I've been practicing Nichiren Buddhism for about 6 years, and completely, without a doubt, it is Buddhism for modern living. And I started in India, and I practiced in London. I'm now a young women's district leader in Manhattan. And the first thing I'd say is, when any of my friends, I guess the way they find out that I'm practicing Buddhism is, I guess it's the best compliment. They're like, what are you doing in your life? Like, what is it about you? So I'm speaking with my life state, what we Buddhists term as a life condition. And I just want to say that you don't have to be the Dalai Lama. He's an amazing person. I actually had the privilege of interviewing him for my master's dissertation, which was on psychoanalysis and the parallels with Buddhism. He's an amazing person, but we all have our own mission. And a lot of people who talk to me about Buddhism or have questions are like, do I need to be a monk? Do I need to go to a monastery? Do I need to wear orchid robes, as such? And what I'm here to say is you are a Buddha. You have, Buddha means awakened one. You have everything that you need inside of you. It doesn't matter if you're on Wall Street, a stay-at-home mom, you're living in Uber, New York, modern living. It's completely fine. You don't have to run away to a sanctuary. You don't have to renounce anything. I think in this day and age, we're so expecting 1 hour photo, 1 hour dry cleaning. We're in a rush. And the thing that differentiates Nichiren Buddhism from other sects of Buddhism, other schools, for example, just like in Christianity, you might have Catholicism, Protestant, Baptism, so on and so forth. There are many schools of Buddhism. Nichiren Buddhism places its emphasis on actual proof. So you might have something like documented proof in other religions or theoretical proof. There's no point in doing something if you don't get actual proof. It's definitely one of the world's major religions, but it's more like a philosophy of life. Einstein was recorded as saying, if there's any religion that's going to understand science, it's Buddhism. How I found it was, I was doing my undergrad in India, and a friend of mine's like, you should try this mantra, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And being Indian, I was like, really? That's a mantra, with another 1,000 mantras, and I didn't pay any attention. But I lost my friend with 4 others in a car accident at the very tender age of 21. And it was her mother who, when I observed the way she handled, again, she was speaking with her life state, how she handled my friend's death, that had me convinced that I needed to learn more about this philosophy. So it's not so much about converting or changing or switching or being coerced. It's more of, I don't feel like anybody asks me questions about Buddhism or approaches it when everything's hunky-dory and quite fine in life. I think people tend to go to a psychologist or try to find a spiritual path when they're questioning, or they want answers, or they're on a path of seeking. And in my experience and countless of others, it was very, very well worth it. So a brief history on Buddhism. It's one of the world's oldest religions. It's about 2,500 years old. Its core is to understand life and to help people overcome suffering. And in that sense, that's why I did my dissertation. It's very concerned about sort of the mental well-being in the here and now. It's Buddhism doesn't exist apart from reality. In fact, in Columbia, where I was studying, they actually have a lab devoted to understanding the parallels between psychology and Buddhism. That's how much similarity they find. It's quite a sort of nascent topic that's being researched. But I think a parable that illustrates this very well is, there were 2 sages in the forest that were looking at a deer with an arrow that had pierced it. Someone had hunted. And the sages were asking questions like many religions would. Where did the arrow come from? At which speed was it going? What was the arrow made out of? And it's purported as a parable or maybe a metaphor. The Buddha walked by and plucked the arrow out of the deer. And his thing was, it doesn't matter. These questions don't matter. Let it be eliminated from suffering. So that's sort of Buddhism's ethos. The Buddha was formerly known as Siddhartha Gautama. He came from a royal family in India. His palace life was far removed from ordinary people. When he discovered how the common man suffered, he made it his life's mission to understand what suffering was. He renounced his throne and sought the foremost teachings to awaken the wisdom of the middle way. So not being too extreme with either austerity or, living a life of indulgence as a prince, as he was formerly known and raised. And then the Buddhism that I practice is Nichiren Buddhism. And Nichiren was a 13th century monk from Japan. And he transformed the Buddha's profound teachings into something that is sort of applicable to everyday living. And that simple practice consisted mainly of chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. That's what we chant as Nichiren Buddhists. And he dedicated his life to sharing this realization. He's met with a lot of persecutions because it was considered a sort of subverted theology or idea. He embraced ordinary people, and the people of Japan, the ruling class, politicians, royals, the government, so on and so forth, they were very alarmed at the fact that Nichiren's like, if you embrace this law, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, any ordinary person can reach enlightenment without a middle person. So he suffered what we would think is suffering quite a bit, but of course, if you read his writings, he was able to handle that with no problem. So a little bit more about the actual mantra, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So Nam means devotion. I devote myself to. Myoho means mystic law. That's something that's thought to be the manifestation of the mystic law all over the world. And Renge means lotus flower. Now, the lotus flower is very symbolic in Buddhism. It is the only flower in the world to simultaneously seed and bloom. So it represents cause and effect. You do something, you say something, you think something, you've made a cause, and simultaneously in your environment, the effect is registered. Now, when it will manifest it's a different thing, but it's at the same time. Very, very profound. And Kyo means sound or teaching out loud. So you have a working definition, like literally what Nam Myoho Renge Kyo means, but basically Nam Myoho Renge Kyo literally encompasses all of the Lotus Sutra teaching. And the Lotus Sutra is the highest teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha. All the teachings before that said things like, women can't reach enlightenment, evil people can't reach enlightenment, so on and so forth. There's many stipulations. This was his last and highest teaching, and it shares that anybody can reach enlightenment. Myoho Renge Kyo supposes in the conjecture, sort of hypothesizes, conjectures that everybody without fail has a Buddha nature. That you can overcome any suffering and bring out your highest potential and wisdom by chanting this mantra. Myoho Renge Kyo also presupposes that the universe holds the potential for absolute happiness and fundamental darkness. And depending on your intent, it's what you bring out. Everybody has a Buddhahood in their existence in this life as they are. Chanting out loud enables one to be in rhythm with the universe. And the universe is depicted as Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. When you're chanting out loud, you're making a determined vow out loud to be at one with the realm of truth in sort of word and thought and deed. And when we're elevating our life state. We're making a determined, repeated expression of our intent. We're bringing forth our highest life potential, rediscovering what already exists in us innately. And in turn, when we chant, it elicits the environment and the universe's protection, the support. It aligns with us, it supports our aims. And inside the environment, so it's sort of micro, macro, us and the universe. We're in rhythm. And it supports us to bring out the innate wisdom that's in each and every individual without fail. So we have the wisdom to take the right course of action that supports what we're chanting about, the objective of our chanting. And, you know, I'm going to speak a little quickly about, in the next slide, about the SGI. But the SGI is Soka Gakkai International. It is the only organization in the world that practices Nichiren Buddhism correctly. And, you know, it's the only organization that, you know, the members employ its Buddhist practice to challenge squarely and directly any issue they're facing in their particular sort of circumstance and environment. And through the process, when we're chanting, we're able to appreciate our manifold potential. We're able to appreciate others. Buddhist practice means to realize our own unique life potential and our life mission. And not only does it empower us to make us take the corrective action, but it's a very great way to lead humankind's energy to a peaceful and prosperous world. So really quickly, when we chant to something called the Gonzon. And the Gonzon is a scroll. It's the object of devotion. And I'm going to be very quick to tell you, it's not magic. It doesn't work miracles. Human beings work innately better with a focal point, so a point of focus. Nichiren, like practicing Nichiren Buddhists enshrine the Gonzon in an altar, so it's sort of safe from, you know, everyday sort of household chores and this and that. It's a reflection of our life state. We keep it safe and we keep it clean, and we chant to it. And it's one of the first milestones that we have in our practice when we begin. And, you know, right down the center it says Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and the rest of the scroll are the 10 life states. And the 10 life states are hell, hunger, animality, anger, humanity, heaven, learning, realization, and Buddhahood. And basically, in short, I mean, they're very profound, but human beings bounce from one life state to another. You know, you may get an unsuspected tax bill or something in the mail and you're very angry. But, you know, all of a sudden, your aunt declares that she's just come into, for example, you know, a big inheritance, and she's sharing that with you. So you're completely in a state of sort of happiness or rapture. So we keep fluctuating, and through chanting, we are able to bring out the best of any world. So let's say, you know, my predominant life state is anger. Through chanting, I bring out the wisdom where I constructively channel that anger, so I'm no longer destructive. And maybe I channel that anger in a positive way and I become an activist. That's just a very quick example of what it means by life states. So really quickly about the SGI, Soka Gakkai International, I mentioned it. It's the world's organization to help people practice Nichiren Buddhism correctly. It was founded in 1930. We've had 3 presidents, Tsuneburo Magaguchi, Josei Toda, Daisaku Ikeda. You know, too little time to go into how profoundly they have affected the organization, and they've been great examples. But in a nutshell, Tsuneburo was a teacher and educator in Japan, and he was very tired of seeing the sort of strict, harsh conditions of education and children learning by rote. He wanted a more value-creating and sort of compassionate way of teaching young minds, students. So what he founded was a precursor to the Soka Gakkai International, which is the world's largest Buddhist organization. We practice in 192 countries with over 12 million members. And in a nutshell, he was jailed during World War II. The Japanese government practiced Shintoism, and that was in direct, they wanted basically him to enshrine a Shinto object of worship. And as we do in Buddhism, we don't worship anything. It's all about internal power and what what resides within. And Magaguchi refused to do that. The Nichiren Shoshu priesthood, for sort of fear of their own safety, enshrined. These were Buddhist priests. They enshrined Shinto sort of objects, and Magaguchi and his disciple Toda were thrown in jail. And Magaguchi was a wonderful example of fearlessness, completely undaunted, kept expounding these principles of Buddhism as originally taught by Nichiren, even in jail. He died in jail, and Toda took on the baton. And after World War II, he was released. The whole society that Magaguchi had created was in ruins, and he rebuilt it. and he renamed it the Soka Gakkai International, which is value creating society. And he took it to a membership of 750,000 people in Japan, which was no small feat, considering, you know, it was post-war and Shintoism is what ruled Japan. And then he passed the baton on to what is my mentor, President Daisaku Ikeda. And words almost fail me, but not quite. He's an amazing individual who's put Buddhism on the map and has truly made it a global Buddhism. He is the reason why it's practiced by 12 million people. He is the reason why my professor at Columbia, when he was in my course on East Asian Buddhism, was saying that this school of Buddhism is by far the most successful and the most profound. He met President Toda at age 19, and we're closely affiliated with the United Nations, and he submits peace proposals every year. He has founded many institutions. He's founded the Toda Institute for Global Peace and Research, which works with activists and policy researchers and policy makers for independent research on how we can sort of provide a global forum for peace. He continues to propagate President Toda's message in 1957 about nuclear abolition. There should be no nuclear activity that's, you know, criminal in itself. He's conducted dialogue with Nelson Mandela, Mikhail Gorbachev, Arnold Toynbee, the British historian, and he's gone a long way in making Buddhism accessible to the masses. And it's very interesting having a mentor-disciple relationship. As Nichiren Buddhists, we consider him our mentor. And, you know, President Ikeda was quoted as saying, you know, you can liken a mentor-disciple relationship to a needle and thread. The mentor is a needle and the disciple is a thread. So the mentor guides the needle or guides the disciple through the cloth, but in the end, you know, the needle's not needed. It's the cloth that keeps everything together. And, you know, if you read his works, he's a prolific writer. It is profound and it is really, really life-changing. A couple people, interestingly, who practice Buddhism, Herbie Hancock, he speaks, and this is on the internet, he speaks very much, it's very mystic and beautiful, Myoho Renge Kyo, about how the Buddhism has changed the course of his jazz career. Orlando Bloom also speaks about Buddhism and how it's made him use his fame wisely. In Buddhism, we talk about this thing called, again, a lot of religions, you know, place an emphasis on sacrifice and you must give up this and that. And Buddhism says your desires lead to your enlightenment. And I, for one, can say, yes, absolutely. You know, I would chant for this, that. And people often ask me, what can you chant for? I'm like, anything. If you want the Chicago Bulls, not that they're playing, but anybody, you know, the Yankees to win, that's fine. Whatever you want to chant for, anything. But at the end of the day, you see through chanting, it brings out an extraordinary wisdom where your prayer is evolved. And Orlando is testimony to that. You know, he's obviously a prolific actor, but he's also spoken about how through chanting he realizes his mission on helping the environment and using his name for a good cause. And Tina Turner, I'm sure many would be familiar in the 80s and 90s with her career and her movie, you know, What's Love Got to Do with It. And she left a very, very abusive marriage and got the strength and courage to do so through chanting. Just Google it, it's amazing. You can see her on Larry King, you know, with her beautiful voice, resonating the chant and speaking about how much it's changed her life. So that's a little bit about Buddhism with people who are practicing and how it makes a difference. And, you know, I just want to say quickly, you know, in this part of the world, in the Western world, we usually, you know, maybe on a Christian Judeo model, we try to sort of commune with a transcendental power that's sort of beyond us. We feel that it doesn't exist in the life of human beings. It's to be found somewhere else, and the power is sort of other directed. But Buddhism is all about us, empowering ourselves and understanding that the answer is within us and it's inner directed. You know, we're seeking assistance from our own Buddha nature, our own wisdom that we really have. We need to tap into it. I think it's too easy often to sit there and go, my boss sucks, or my boyfriend, or my girlfriend, or my spouse, or this, that, and other. And it's always external. But make no mistake, when we call it human revolution, that inner transformation. All of us have the capability to lead a life that's full of health, compassion, courage, prosperity. But it needs to come from a sincere inner change. And you can't fool the universe. It's just a matter of being in sync and understanding, and really, really, more than superficially, just having a change of heart and mind and understanding, and taking responsibility. What can we change? What can we do? And what happens is, sort of in the West, because we're praying to something else, outside of ourselves externally, sometimes our prayers can be laden with a sense of guilt or inadequacy. But here with Buddhism, because since we take the reins of control and we focus on our inner selves and what can we do, we're empowered, we're emboldened, and our prayers take on a note of appreciation and gratitude. And, in Buddhism, they say even sages and, worthies have to suffer things. There's a saying, suffer what you have to suffer. Nichiren says it, suffer what you have to suffer, enjoy what you have to enjoy. But in Buddhism, it's not a matter of surviving, it's a matter of thriving. And the promise of Nichiren Buddhism is to create an unshakable sense of happiness and fulfillment, and creating harmony with others. And no matter how much you try, sometimes you might feel like you're trying, and the harder you try, the worse things become. If your life is full of delusion, no matter how hard you try, you're not going to break that chain. So through chanting, we really bring out the wisdom to find the root cause of our suffering, to find out what causes we're making. We have the wisdom to make the right cause. And when we have the right wisdom through chanting, that inspires us to take the right action. When we take the right action, that lessens our suffering. And when we're suffering less, that increases our faith. So I would really like to end by saying thank you so much for listening. If you're watching this, you're already on a path of seeking. Keep an open mind. You have nothing to lose. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But in every person that I've ever spoken to, that I've come across, and my life is testimony to it, inconspicuously and conspicuously. Conspicuously being obvious things like a house, a flat, a partner, a job. That's all well and done, but the inner change. People can see that. They always ask me whether a job or work, what are you doing? What is it about you? What is that? And it is Buddhism. It boils down to that. So thank you so much for listening. And if you have any more questions or you're interested, the contact information is up. So thank you for listening, and have a great day.